Have you guys ever seen a movie so bad that it keeps you up at night? And I'm not talking about one of those like bad made-for-TV movies that's capitalizing on like Christmas time or giving a studio of people like $200 and saying make something, and the cast is all just like unknown people who only do made-for-TV movies and don't really know how to act. Today we're going to be talking about a movie that has a budget. I actually had to look this up just before recording this because I was thinking, okay, well, maybe I'm talking about all these bad made-for-TV movies in the intro, but the budget of it is similar to those in the made-for-TV things, so maybe I didn't understand. The budget for this movie is $30 million, and it stars Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves, you may have heard of Keanu Reeves. He's done a couple little things like The Matrix or in recent history like John Wick. Maybe you guys know Bill and Ted. So a few big movies in his repertoire. And then also stars one of my favorite newer comedians, newer as in like in the past decade or so, Thomas Middleditch, who I recently saw his Netflix special with Ben Schwartz. Amazing, super funny. Like they do an improv thing. There's 3 episodes of them just doing improv, and it's one of the greatest things. I recommend you go watch it. Thomas Middleditch and Keanu Reeves are in this movie, and it is maybe one of the most confusing, badly written... I can't even get the words out. It's that bad. It actually broke my brain. Today we're going to be watching Replicas, starring Keanu Reeves, Thomas Middleditch, and a bunch of other actors that are less known, but still, this is insane. So the movie starts off with Keanu in his lab. He's obviously a scientist of some sort, which we will come to discover very soon. And it also establishes that he has a family, at least has a wife and a daughter named Zoe, who likes to draw him cute little pictures. Obviously, she's probably young. And like any father would, you would love your daughter. You would love your children. You would do anything. And obviously, being a father, he would love all of them equally. And want to save all of them, let's say, if a calamity happened. Basically what happens next is a donor arrives to the facility. We find out that this donor is pretty much like a soldier who's died somehow in combat. They don't really go into it, doesn't really matter. And that this donor has given themselves and their dead body basically towards this cause. So they use this weird headset machine and stick a needle into his eye to basically steal his brain away, as you do. And then they start the process of moving this person's consciousness basically over to the robot. And this is done through some weird augmented reality brain thing by Keanu Reeves. The robot manages to come alive with this guy's consciousness, assumingly, and everyone is astounded. It seems like this is the first time really that this has worked, and all it manages to say is, "Who am I?" So something seems a little bit eerie. It seems nearly like the concept of like a Black Mirror episode is maybe where this whole plot started, but then they take 10 different ideas and merge it into one movie. The CG in this movie looks like it came straight from a PlayStation 2 game. It looks horrible, and I feel like it gets worse. So they bring the robot alive, but it doesn't like being alive for whatever reason, we don't know yet, and tries to kill itself. And trust me, if I was in this movie, I would be trying to kill myself as well. So Keanu heads home, and this is where we pretty much meet his entire family. He has a wife, obviously. He's got 3 kids. He's got 2 daughters and a son. Their names really don't matter. You got like older girl, boy, younger girl. That's pretty much all you need to know. They're a non-factor in this movie. So is the wife, really. But you know, this is Keanu's family. He loves them. You would assume, you would assume that if anything happened to this family, pretty decent sized family. Obviously, he's been with his wife for a while. If their oldest kid is obviously like a teenager or whatever, he has 3 kids. And if anything happened to any of them, you would be distraught. It would ruin your life. It also was established that Thomas Middleditch, or Ed in the movie, knows the whole family. The whole family knows him. He's like the fun sort of like uncle family friend that just like drops by, doesn't even knock on the door, just like walks in and is just like, yo, what's up, people? So everyone's pretty friendly, and everyone knows each other, and it's a good time. Everyone's about to go on holiday.
Hell yeah, dude.
So Keanu's wife during this entire scene pretty much establishes that she doesn't really like the work that he does if he's trying to bring people back to life. but they're like killing themselves, and they're, you know, they're obviously in pain or something's going very wrong. She starts talking to him about the morality of it all, and that these people have souls, or like the people you're trying to bring back, do you know that they have a soul, or are they missing a soul, something like that. And Keanu does a very scientific response that's like, okay, we are just electrical impulses, and all that we are is just like our memories and like our experiences, and that's pretty much it. You're probably already assuming that he's, I mean, this whole premise of the movie is that he's going to be bringing people back to life. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything. I mean, I will in probably like 2 minutes. But, you know, stuff is going to happen. He's going to bring some people back to life. Now, you would assume that this whole idea of a soul or something missing in a person, or when trying to bring someone back, they're not fully back, or, you know, something goes wrong in that process, you would assume that would play a big part in the entire story. And I'm here to preface the entire thing with no, it never shows up again. There are slight instances where you might think like, oh, the people that he's brought back, something's maybe a little bit wrong, but then they completely drop it. It never comes up ever again. If there is a soul, bringing people back from the dead brings back their soul. There is no issue. It's never questioned. Completely just dropped from the get-go. Next, we cut to the family in the middle of on their road trip to wherever they're going for a holiday. It really doesn't matter because, spoiler alert, they don't get there. And it's in the middle of rain, big storm. I'm sure you can guess what happens. So obviously, super brutal scene. The mother gets fucking impaled by a tree branch, and she's like, ugh. Ultimately, we find out that the entire family has been killed. The wife and all 3 kids died in that accident. We don't actually know what happened to the kids, assuming that they just like hit their head on something or like drowned, even though the car wasn't really fully submerged. But Keanu apparently completely untouched. Everyone else in his family dead on impact. Everyone died, but Keanu doesn't really even have a scratch on him. But anyway, his whole family is dead. He calls Thomas Middleditch to come help him out, to bring some equipment. Middleditch doesn't know, up until this point, what's going on. He just knows to come bring all of this equipment to a certain location. That's it. And first of all, the first thing I noticed the second that Thomas Middleditch's character comes onto the scene is that he has more of a reaction than Keanu does. So anyway, they pretty much grab the minds of all the kids and the wife, and they take the hard drives and the bodies of his entire family to the lab to pick up more equipment. And what they then established to be the entire premise of the film here is, instead of moving, so you could think like maybe they're going to try and move the consciousness of these people into robots, because that's what we've seen, is that Keanu's working on like robots, like synthetic life, and moving the brains into that. And then maybe you can dress the robot up to look like a human, and maybe that's the premise of the movie. This is where we then find out that Thomas Middleditch isn't Keanu's assistant or anything like that. He isn't working on the robots. He is working on the cloning sector of this lab. No joke. They haven't brought this up until now. But Thomas Middleditch's character is a scientist working on cloning animals, cloning humans. But now the movie turns into moving these consciousnesses into clones of humans. This is the first time that they've considered that maybe we could put the human brain into human body. Human brain into human body. I make human body, you make human brain. We put human brain, human body together. We get human? So they take all the equipment and the bodies, I think, all the way back to Keanu's house to sort of set up, because they can't do this in the lab because this is all off the books sort of stuff. And then this is when Thomas Middleditch establishes to Keanu that he only has 3 pods, yet there are 4 dead family members, so what is he gonna do? And then that's when Keanu has the brilliant idea to put all the names of his family into a hat, and then he seems to pull out a name of one of his kids, Zoe, and that's how he's decided that Zoe will no longer live. He will not clone Zoe, he will not bring her back. Zoe is dead, the youngest child. Zoe is dead because he pulled her out of a hat, and that's it. So basically they set up the pods in Keanu's basement, and they've established up to this point that if anything goes wrong with the pods, so if the nutrient levels are off or if the power cuts out or something like that, then the clones within the pods are going to be like disfigured, or they're going to be missing an organ, or like potentially even a lung. And Keanu's dead set. He's ready. He's going to clone his entire family and then put their brains into the clones. Oh, and because he's not bringing back his child Zoe, he then makes the decision to delete her memories from all of their like hard drives, their consciousness hard drives. So he searches Zoe into the brain search. Basically, this is real. This is the real part of the movie. Is he searches Zoe in their brains and then deletes the connections between Zoe. So during this whole process, to basically have a backup power source for all of the pods so that they didn't run out of power, it turns out he went around his entire street and stole all the car batteries from all the cars and wired them all up so that it could be like a backup power source for all the pods to clone his family. And so eventually the police come to his door and be like, hey, we've had reports that literally everyone else in this street has had the batteries in their cars stolen. And we want to know if you can just say that the same thing has happened for you, because it's happened to everyone else, so we assume it's also happened for you. And Keanu just says, nah, it's my battery's fine, dude. I don't know. Maybe they just didn't want to steal mine, and they wanted to steal everyone else's. I'm like, nah, everything's fine. The police are like, that's interesting. That's weird. Okay. Oh, we'll have a good day, sir. And again, you would think watching this scene, you go, oh no, now the police are onto him. Now he's got to deal with trying to clone his family while the police are like investigating what's going on. It never comes up again. So yeah, all the clones seem perfectly fine. He takes them all out of the pods, puts them into bed. Keanu and Thomas Middleditch do some more AR brain bullshit and move the consciousness into the clone without any problems, and she wakes up. But then they drug her and put her back to sleep because now he needs to do it to the other children to make sure everyone's alive, and then he pretty much needs to make sure that when they wake up in the morning, it's like nothing's changed, and then they go about their days. That's his plan. Put all the consciousnesses into the bodies in one night, and then everyone wakes up the next morning and goes about their normal day. So anyway, Keanu wakes up. His whole family is up and about, doing their own thing. The kids seem to be eating a lot, which, you know, we're going, oh, okay, they're clones. They haven't eaten, like, ever. So they're going to be very super hungry. Maybe they're going to question that a little bit. Spoiler alert, they don't question it at all. So his wife goes on this run, and she starts clutching her chest. Like, obviously, something hurts. She's you know, because she's a clone, which she doesn't know yet, she may be missing something, maybe even like missing a lung, or her lungs have like shrunk or something like that. And you would think that becomes a big point. Maybe the wife starts to die slowly because she's not working properly, and the kids also start to go crazy because they're eating a lot and something goes wrong and their brains aren't okay or something like that. But no, this scene, which seems very serious and very dire and a big conflict that's about to arise, is never touched again. So then the next plot of this movie, and I say next plot because it just seems like every scene sort of establishes a new conflict that sort of just gets like swept away. But the next problem is that they need to make the next robot back in his normal job work as intended. Otherwise, they're all gonna like lose their jobs or something like that. But now he gains a conscience, and he doesn't want to put someone else, you know, another donor through the pain of like tearing themselves apart or whatever happened to the previous one. So his solution is that he's going to upload his own brain to the robot. So he goes into the bathroom and does this. While Keanu is working on this algorithm thing in his lab, his daughter wakes up screaming from a nightmare, saying that she remembers, she's basically remembering the car crash and her mother dying and getting impaled by that tree, and she's like super freaked out because it feels like it's real, because it is real, it is what happened. So she's having those memories from the car crash. And so all of this like memory erasing that Keanu did obviously didn't work to the fullest extent. And that's going to be a problem if his kids and his wife start to remember the car crash. So what he does is he drugs his daughter, like he's been drugging his family the entire movie, drags her to the basement and starts to get rid of more memories to make sure that she doesn't have to deal with the horror of the car crash or trying to remember it or what questions it'll bring up. And then while erasing her memories, he gets walked in on by his wife. Keanu reveals pretty much everything to her. Just basically says, you died, you're a clone, you and the kids are clones. And she basically has no reaction to the fact that she's a clone and that she died and that she's kind of like not real or she's like a copy, or she has no reaction. She just says, get the thing off her head, and then walks out. Again, the acting in this movie is so confusing. Wasn't there any direction of like, hey, you should act a little bit more distraught? I mean, obviously the writing has something to blame as well. Why would you write the scene like that and not her like freaking out and being like, what the fuck? You're an insane person. Why would you do this? Who am I? What's going on? And then, you know, this whole existential crisis. There is no existential crisis. Even though that she realizes for the rest of the movie, she knows that she's a clone. He knows that his whole family are clones. There's no questions of this. I don't know. The whole thing just, it stopped making sense a while ago. So anyway, the wife now knows the whole story. Everything seems like it's maybe going to be okay. The wife starts to like briefly remember that she has a daughter named Zoe, so she's kind of aware, and Keanu like lets her know that there was another child, and again they seem to just sort of blow over and it doesn't really matter. But everything seems to be okay. Like everything is gonna move on. No one's really questioning anything. And looks like the family's gonna live happily ever after until their dinner is interrupted by Keanu's boss. Keanu's boss has come by and is asking, yo man, what's up? And this is where we reveal that the actual conflict, and this is probably like the 5th time I've mentioned a conflict in the movie, the actual conflict, the actual big reveal at the end, or the bad guy or anything, is Keanu's boss. It turns out that he's working, the whole scientific lab and everything is working for the military. And that he's been aware of everything that's happening the entire time. He knows that all the pods were taken. He knows that he cloned his family and that they died, and then he's moved their consciousnesses into the cloned bodies. And he's like, I let all of this happen so you could like develop the science. You know what I mean? Like if I stayed off, then you would figure out the problem, and then we could create clones for the government and the military and stuff like that. And then basically says your whole family is owned by us, it's our property, and so tries to take his family, and obviously Keanu's not going to let that happen, so smacks him over the head and they all run away. And now it becomes more of like a thriller, like action movie, where it's been like some weird sci-fi mystery thing before. The entire movie takes a hard pivot into like this like runaway action movie now. So while they're on the run now, Keanu reveals that they probably all have trackers inside of them, even though they're like were produced in a pod and cloned and was never out of his sight basically, but they have trackers inside of them from the materials that they use to like make them or something, and so that's how they're tracking their car. So to then remove the trackers inside of them, they have to go to the wife. So the wife is actually like a doctor or a nurse or something. She works at a clinic of some sorts. It's never really established properly, but she works in medicine in some capacity. And so they go to wherever she works, and they get a defibrillator, and they decide that to remove the trackers from the children and the wife, they need to shock them with the defibrillator to like get rid of the tracker, to like short it or something. Even though they fucking shock the hell out of their 2 kids and the wife, to remove the trackers, they still get found while Keanu is like preparing a boat for them to like leave. The bad guy finds them anyway and takes them away and takes them back to the lab, where he's going to like hold them hostage, I guess is the plan, to then get the algorithm so that he can continue to create clones or to create robots with consciousness, human consciousness. This is me trying to put everything together. For absolutely no reason whatsoever, he kills Thomas Middleditch, who seems to be the only guy who works on the whole cloning thing. He seems to be the main cloning guy, and you've just killed him for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So to try and save his family, he tells the bad guy that he will recreate the algorithm for him, and while doing this, he then activates the robot that has his consciousness in it to then come beat the bad guy. This movie feels like a fever dream. So anyway, robot Keanu kills everyone basically, and takes over. So now there's robot Keanu and real Keanu and clone family and dead Middleditch. That's the current situation. And that's the resolution of the movie. The robot kills everyone. The family is safe. They manage to escape. During the escape, Keanu goes back and makes sure that the robot doesn't kill the boss, so then they can replicate his mind, I think. So here is where we get the ending scenes of the movie, which all string together like they provide some like resolution, like here we go, here's how we resolve the whole movie. But each one adds more questions, and it feels like it was just added on at the end without any preparation whatsoever. So the first scene that we get is the family living happily ever after on the beach. They're all chilling on the beach. They're all happy. Like, it seems like they've escaped. Everything is good. And then Keanu walks up with Zoe. You remember Zoe? Do you guys remember Zoe from the start of the movie? Zoe, the kid that wasn't brought back because they didn't have enough pods, and that the whole family has forgotten, except for the mother who kind of vaguely remembers, and then Keanu tells her that Zoe did exist. He walks up to the whole family with Zoe, and that's like a happy ending, like the whole family's back together and everything is good. I want to remind you guys, they never establish if anything's wrong with the clones, if the clones have souls, if they're any different from their like normal, original counterparts. The kids still don't remember this Zoe fucking sister that they apparently have, and they don't talk about it ever. There is no problems with the fact that they're clones. There is no problems. They're all just happy on the beach now with this extra daughter that shows up, and they all just accept it, and then they move on. Then the following scene shows the bad guy, he's still alive, but I think we are led to believe that he's a clone. Yeah, I think he's supposed to be a clone or something, but basically he now works for the Keanu robot, who is now selling cloning and consciousness moving to rich people for some reason, which is never established. But that's the resolution for the bad guy and the robot, is that they now enter this business of like selling to rich people. Okay, I mean, is it any more weird than the rest of the movie? Probably not. It really just adds this extra layer of like, okay. And that's the that's the end of Replicas. That's it. That's the entire movie. I don't know. It's an insanely bad movie. I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it. But thank you guys so much for sitting through this with me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I want to be doing more reviews of like movies and TV shows, so we'll see how that goes. But I am going to finish the rest of this bottle just to sleep tonight. I think this movie broke me.